Hey everyone, welcome to Cuberviews episode 18. This is your host, Ian Braverman. I hope you're having a great day. Today I am joined by three guests, a first time on the podcast, Kyle Ferguson, Bryan Camidge, and Justin Rodriguez. How are you all doing today?
Great. Good to be here.
Doing well.
Doing excellent.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to be talking with all of you guys today. I know you all very well from cubing at Games IRL in Avon, Connecticut. If you happen to be in the area, come join us. Always looking for more cubers. Yeah, today we have a fun episode topic. We're talking about seeding packs and cubes, which I think is something that a lot of people hear and say, seeding packs and cubes, that's a little strange, but hey, we're going to talk about some of the benefits today and why you should consider it. But before we jump into that, Kyle, start us off. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hey, I was on one of the earlier episodes of the podcast. I'm Kyle Ferguson. Been cubing about 2 years with you guys. I've been playing Magic for about 15. I was the one who did Democracy Cube, like episode 4 or something like that, 3 or 4. And yeah, we just came back from Vertex in Philadelphia last weekend, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Vertex Philly was great. I definitely want to go to more Cube events. We're going to be at Boston Cube Party later this year. I'm going to be at Cube for a Cause. It's going to be great. And
Yeah.
what do you do for work?
I'm a math teacher. I teach math up in Connecticut here. And I'm hoping to put the cube that I'm talking about today in for CubeCon this year. So we'll see.
Yes, I think the Cube openings start in like March or April. So
Yeah.
that's going to be exciting. Yeah, Bryan, tell us a little about yourself.
I have been playing Magic for like 20 something years, since like the early Saga blocks, I want to say. I have won an SCG Open years ago and gotten like top 8 in some other events.
I was
things like
watching that on YouTube before. You were playing that burn deck. It was cool in the finals.
Oh yeah. It was a blast of a time. The whole time I was just laughing with everybody there. It was a fun time. Yeah, I've been playing Magic for a while. I've just started, I do drafting now. I haven't done constructed in like 10 years or anything like that, but I like cubing. I've been doing cube since like 15 years ago or something was the first cube that I had, a vintage cube. Before EDH was a thing, I had a cube. Fun
And now you
times.
have the Flan Dynamo.
Yes.
Very cool. And Justin, tell us a little about you.
Okay, so I was on one of the previous episodes with the Ultra Cube. I think it was our second episode. And I've been playing Magic since Fifth Dawn back in summer camp. I'm a nurse anesthesiologist student in my first year, and I love watching sumo and cooking and eating really good food in my free time.
And I'm just always happy to get a few moments with you. You're so busy as a student. So today, like I said, we're talking about seeding packs. And seeding packs is interesting because when you do a normal limited draft, it's seeded, basically. You have the rare, you have the three uncommons, and the commons. And there are also seeded cubes, like set cubes. But people don't really seed non-set cubes. But you guys all do. And I'm really excited to talk about your perspectives on them today. So, starting with Bryan, you have your vintage cube. And what you do, which is really cool, is you seed the packs by having it be a normal 14 cards, but then you take the top cards of the cube, around 30 cards, you shuffle them up. So that would be things like the Power, Fourth Aerolingus, the best cards in the cube. And
Mhm.
then you give one of those to every person to make sure that they're able to get a really good card in each of their packs. Yeah, Bryan, tell us a little bit how you do that.
I like the idea of making a draft format feel like a cube format feel as similar to standard draft when you're opening packs, where you have a rare and you have the three uncommons. I've been trying to figure out what the uncommons in the vintage cube would be for a while, and I haven't figured out that list just yet. So I'm just sticking with the rares right now. But I think you can figure out roughly what the top like 30 to 40 cards would be. Top 10 being like your Power 9 plus Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, things like that. And then working your way down, like you said, Fourth Aerolingus, Minsk and Boo. There's a lot of powerful cards that are above the level of most cards in the cube. And I do like spreading out that power. I'm not a big fan of cube format or cube draft when one person opens up a piece of power in every one of their packs, and the person to their right opens up two pieces of power so they get past a fourth one. It really unbalances the games, and people like get annoyed where it's like, how am I supposed to beat the Mox Black Lotus, Time Walk, opening hand, or whatever it is. And the way I do it now is everybody gets in your pack, in one of your 3 packs, you're gonna have either one of the Moxen, Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, or Time Walk. So everybody is going to get one of those powerful things, and then the other rares are going to be in the other packs as well. But I like balancing of drafting formats, so that's why I do it.
Yeah, and I think it's been a lot of fun trying to decide what the top 30 cards are in Vintage Cube. It's funny, when you started to do it, I think you said that LSV actually like just posted his 50 top cards in Cube right when you started to do it. So it was like perfect stars aligning.
Oh yeah, it was perfect timing. I was trying to come up with the what the 50 cards would be, and we had talked about it like a week before. And then I watch his YouTube channel every once in a while, and he posted a video that was all about top 50 cards. So it's like, oh, this is an easy way to figure it out. If somebody smarter than me at cubing is going to make a list of the top X number of cards for Vintage Cube, I'm just going to go with that or tweak it slightly so it fits my cube. But my cube is a standard Vintage Cube. Like in a 540 Vintage Cube, I feel like you're going to have at least 400 cards that are going to be like almost set in stone for like your standard Vintage Cube type of thing. And then the last 100 or 150 cards you can shuffle around a bit with. So the top 30 is even going to be more, I feel like, set in stone. But it does change every once in a while.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of fun. So Justin, I know that you do something similar also. Yours is a Vintage Cube also. It's a little bit of a different Vintage Cube, but tell me how you do it.
Yeah, so I actually have a top 24. And these guys all know we have a running joke that Field of the Dead is the 24th most powerful card in the cube,
It's number
which is
500 at
actually
least.
which is actually not true. We proved that last draft. But I play some weird things like Jack in the Mox, Mox Poison that make it into the top 24 too. I don't necessarily make it so that everyone gets a Mox or a Lotus or one of the original Power 9. I just make sure that out of your 3 packs, there is always a seeded top 24 card. Those cards can include like, all the regular Power 9. I have the companions, Luris and Lutri, that we play with original companion rules, where you don't have to pay the 3. Urza Saga, Strip Mine, Demonic Tutor, Entomb, even like Swords of the Plowshares could be up there in the top 24 too.
Yeah, and what are some of the gameplay advantages that you've seen by having this model of distributing the most powerful cards in the cube?
I just think that if you disperse the most powerful cards, depending on the type of format that you want to run, but I'm trying to even that playing field just so that one player doesn't open all of the busted cards. This way, it ensures that every single card that I consider in the top 24 makes it into the draft, and every player gets 3 of those pieces.
Yeah, I think it's a really great aspect of gameplay. Sure, it takes a little bit of time to set it up. Like you have to shuffle up the top 30, you need to distribute them at the beginning of every pack. At the end of the draft, we all have to make sure that Bryan or Justin or Kyle get those top 30 cards separated. So it does add a little bit of work, which we'll get more into it. But I think that it adds a lot of gameplay advantages. And Kyle, what do you think about the idea of seeding packs for power reasons?
I love seeing packs for power reasons. I think it's a good idea because the same happens in normal standard draft, like Brian said, or you get 3 Field of Ruins and the other guy only gets 1, so you're out of luck. But I think it's great. I don't seed packs in my queue based on power. I seed it based on color distribution. Yeah, I love seeing packs based on power. I think it's very helpful and allows for people to make better decisions and allows for a more competitive cube.
Definitely. And what are some of the disadvantages that you think could come from specifically seeding for power? Why might somebody not want to do that?
I think the disadvantage is it's not like a true randomized, like shuffle all the cards up and draft them. Like you have some knowledge going into what cards you're going to receive beforehand, so you can make a better game plan as to what you can draft around. Like going into a Vintage Cube, if you don't know you're going to get a power, you might look at a card differently than if you know you're going to have at least one piece of power. You're going to evaluate cards differently and base your deck off of it. So I feel like that lends itself to a less random environment.
Definitely. And I think that it also adds another part of the aspect of gameplay that because in regular Vintage Cube, you never know if you're going to get any of the most powerful cards. I've gone through many drafts in Vintage Cube where I don't get any power, I don't get any of the near adjacent power. And when you're not going to get any of it, I draft different decks, honestly, in Vintage Cube. When I don't have any of it, I go for mono red aggro or I go for mono white aggro. I don't go for Storm when I'm not going to get Black Lotus. So when you can get a Black Lotus as one of your three picks, much more likely, or power, things like Storm become a lot more viable, especially if in your first pack you get Black Lotus and it's much more likely that you can get it. So I think that it does unlock more strategies for different people. Yeah, so what do you think, Brian, about some of the advantages and disadvantages of it?
Well, like you were saying, having the knowledge of the packs, it adds more strategy when you seed the packs, I feel, than just a complete random element to it, especially if you're seeding the packs based on color or like different variables in that sense. The way I seed the packs now, I've changed it a bunch of different times and throughout doing the drafts, but the 15 cards are going to be one of each of the five colors, one artifact, one multicolored card, two lands, and the last five cards are going to be from a pile of cards that are evenly spread of colors, multicolors, and lands, and then taken from like the top. So you're going to get a spread of different colors and lands and things like that. So you'll never get a pack that is like 6 red cards and 9 green cards, which is miserable to open up in a cube draft, especially if you're a Gruul player. Like if you're not in Gruul and you open up a red and green pack, you're like, all right, whatever. I guess I'll just hate this card. But when you're Gruul and you open up a pack and it's all the cards you want in your deck and you can only take one and then maybe one will table two that you want, like it feels so miserable. But when you seed the packs so that every pack has like color kind of distribution spread out and everything, you know, like when somebody's passing to you, if a color has been cut off, if you don't see any blue cards for the first like 4 packs that you've been passed in pack one, you know that it's being cut off because there should be blue cards in those packs. And that's how it kind of works in like a standard draft because of the way that Wizards of the Coast seeds those things. So I try to just replicate that type of mentality while I'm seeding packs. I think it adds more strategy than just randomizing the packs themselves. So that's why I like doing it.
That's a really interesting gameplay addition. Like you said, in standard draft, it's not set up in a way that's guaranteed to have the same number of colored cards in every pack. But for example, in like Mystery Booster, it's 2 red, 2 green, 2 white. It's very standardized. And like you said, it adds a lot more strategy when there is going to be 2 white cards in the pack and those 2 white cards are gone. It really makes it much more clear you can read signals. And I think that especially for a newer player that's trying to learn how to read signals, I think that is really good to be able to see a pack, say there are no red cards in here, and it wasn't just some randomness that there wasn't any red cards in that pack. And sure, having a really good shuffling, like for example at Vertex Philly, we did the broadcast shuffle. Shout out to Lucky Paper Radio. Very good way to shuffle. Even when you fully shuffle a cube and it's really well shuffled, there could still be just weird packs that have no lands or 10 green cards. And when you get past that pack, it can kind of screw up your thinking. Or there's a whole pack where there really weren't any mono red cards, and you're like, wow, should I be in mono red? And then sometimes your draft can get derailed. So that's also a really interesting part of it. Yeah, Justin, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that a major disadvantage of seeding packs is just like it's a lot of front-loading information on your players. So your players need to understand what the top 24 cards are. And then I seed my packs in many different ways, which we get into. That just adds an extra layer for every type of seeding you want to do. And I've seeded by color before, but then I've also been told by players that it almost felt like they were on easy mode and they didn't really have to like think about signals because it was just right in your face. Like if you're not getting blue cards, obviously, there's like 2 blue cards in that pack, 2 green cards in that pack. If I'm only seeing one of them, I know that the player next to me had taken one. So I've gotten a lot of feedback on that. So I try to keep things as randomized as possible that aren't seeds, but it really depends on how much front-loading information you want to put in front of the draft on a player.
Yeah, so that's a great point. And another way to seed packs that you do, Justin, is seeding by synergy. You have duplicates in your cube, so wanting to make sure that all the duplicates show up in the packs. For example, you have multiple collected companies because you want to be able to have a as I love, Bant value pile deck. So if both of those show up in the packs guaranteed, then that deck is a lot more viable. Or storm cards. If you make sure that all the storm cards show up, that's really important, especially when your cube is more than 360 cards. If your cube is a 540 and there's going to be a lot of cards that don't show up, then a more niche strategy that really needs all the support to be able to function may not work. So, Kyle, tell me a little bit about what your thoughts are on that and synergy-based seeding.
I love his cube and synergy basing. I love getting the two Hedron crabs. That was the best deck I ever built. Although I almost failed, and I think you made the same mistake of accidentally putting Lutri in your sideboard as your companion, but you actually couldn't do that
Yep,
because
because
you
I
had
had two
two of the
collecting
sync.
companies.
Yeah, you're like, I can't put Lutri in it. I'm like, oh, okay. Especially with the old companion rules, that's a lot better. But I like it a lot because I think in Cube, your design is to make sure that everyone's being as competitive as possible and everyone can see what cards they want and make the right decisions. And if your goal is to put like two of a card in there to make it sure there's like two Vengevines, you don't want it to be a chance to be one or even zero of them if a lot of your cubes based around that.
Yeah, definitely. Like if there are key pieces to a deck, not making sure that they show up in specific packs, but just making sure that they show up in the draft in general when it's more than a 360 is really important. So, Justin, tell us more about your specific reasoning for synergy-based seeding.
One of the major reasons I like to seed the doubles in my cube, it really helps like new players too, because my cube is a 580 card cube right now, and almost all of it is alternate art. So I just send my cube around the world for different artists to paint on, so people just don't recognize the cards. So when I tell new players who haven't played my cube before, I'm like, you're probably not going to recognize all the cards in the pack. Take your time. But understand that if you're lost, you can always rely on drafting around these synergy piece doubles, right? So we have like two Triumph of St. Catherine in white, two Staff of the Storyteller, two Hedron Crab, two Frantic Search, two Bloodgrass, two Ancient Stellar Spawn. It goes on and on. But you can build around these doubles more comfortably, and you can kind of put yourself on a little bit of a rail for the newer player, and you're going to get rewarded for doing that.
Yeah, and tell me more about how exactly, in addition to duplicates, you make sure that synergy pieces show up also.
Yeah, so like I said before, I like to seed the top 24 of the cards of the cube. That's one slot in the pack. And then I have one of the doubles, which I just said. And then I'll also have synergy cards. So certain cards like Alurin, which I support Alurin pretty heavily in my cube, but for that deck to work, you definitely need to have Alurin. So that is one of the synergy pieces that you can build around. Another one is Doomsday. You're able to play Doomsday in this cube, and Doomsday is one of those cards that are guaranteed going to be in the draft. Another one is Cyberdrive Awakener. You can build a whole deck around that. So I really wanted to make sure that certain cards would always be guaranteed. And so when you see those cards, you would know that you can build around them. I kind of got inspired by Ryan Sachs's cube on this.
Yeah, I think that it makes a lot of sense, especially for decks like Storm. It's so often that you try and draft Storm, and your first thought is, well, I'm going to go in, and if all of the Storm payoffs, or Lion's Eye Diamond, or Black Lotus are in the extra cards that we didn't draft, well, I guess I'll lose. But if you put in the synergy pieces to guarantee that at least those are in the draft, hey, maybe somebody else hate drafted it, or somebody else cut you off, but at least you can't say, well, I went for the strategy and it just wasn't even available to me. And somebody can feel like cheated out of the draft, especially when there's money on the line in the draft, like we often do at our store. We put $10 in and then the winner gets some prizes. It feels really bad when you go for a learn and then there was no learn in the draft. Yeah, so Bryan, do you do any synergy based seeding also, or have you considered doing that?
I don't do any synergy-based seeding. I like the risk reward of going for certain synergies. Like in standard vintage cubes, you have, reanimate, you do have storm, you have a certain number of different types of combos and everything you can go for. And I like if you're going to try to do one of those combos and take one of those cards early, you're going to hope that some of those cards are in the pack. What I've done recently with Thran Dynamo or Flan Dynamo, and kudos to Psychovore who came up with that one, because everybody likes that card in the cube that I have. For that card, I put it in the top 36 cards, which Thran Dynamo is not a top 36 card, but what I've put as the caveat is if you draft that card, then of the packs that were undrafted, if we're doing an 8-person, so there'd be like 12 packs undrafted, you can trade that card in for one of the cards from those packs that wasn't drafted. So some other way to get the cards that weren't in the cube into the draft while you're drafting, or with the cards that are in the draft. I feel like you could do it with Cogwork Librarian or like Lore Seeker or any of the cards that once you draft them don't do anything. You could add an extra caveat of, well, you can now trade those in for cards that weren't drafted, so you could get the pieces that you need for your deck that you were building. You built a really cool Dark Depths deck, but you never saw Dark Depths. Now, because you drafted Grand Dynamo, you can go get Dark Depths because somebody didn't draft it. It wasn't in the pod or something like that. So I like doing things like that. I like trying to bring all the cards into the cube, even if you don't draft all of the cards in the cube.
I totally agree with you. I have Lore Seeker in all my cubes. I just think it's more fun to take in more cards into the draft and add more cards. And it doesn't add any negatives. I used to include Booster Tutor in all of my cubes, not as much these days because sometimes with Booster Tutor, you open up a pack and there's just some insta win card that wasn't even in the draft and I reanimate it and now it's over. So Booster Tutor is fun, but I haven't been playing it as much these days. And Justin, I know that with your cube, you do something that's kind of similar, which is really fun. You have an extra card that when you draft it, you can get extra cards that used to be in the cube.
Yeah, I have a card like that. But back real quick on a tangent on Dark Depths. So Dark Depths for me is a build around card, but I don't include Thespian Stage as a build around card because in the drafts, there are multiple ways that you could turn on Dark Depths with the Shifting Woodland, the Mirage Mirror, the Thespian Stage. So I let those be random, but I have Dark Depths specifically as one of the build arounds. And then I actually made a custom card for my cube. So I've probably commissioned over 600 cards right now for the cube, which is kind of ridiculous. And I'm always swapping out these altars and I always want to play with them. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to make something custom. So I actually run that as one of the power slots. And it's basically a Green Sun Zenith that pulls from the extra deck. And the extra deck is all altered cards that used to be in the cube.
Yeah, I think that's a ton of fun. Yeah, so another reason that you could be doing seeding is to ensure that there is enough fixing in the draft and to make sure that there's a good distribution of fixing. So, Kyle, I know that you do that in your cube. What are the benefits of seeding fixing?
A cube that we've done like 3 times over the past like 3 months or so is the control cube, which I made. The goal of the cube was just to have control mirrors, and there's not a lot of low drop threats, a lot of counter spells, a lot of good interaction, and high CMC threats. And the goal is just to outgrind your opponent to see if you make better decisions on the fly. And the problem with the control cube is that most of the cards are blue. So of my fixing, there is 60 fixing lands, and of the 60 fixing lands, like 40 something of them are blue fixing. So in the packs, I always make sure that you have X number of cards in them. So you have 3 blue cards, 1 of each of the other cards. And for the fixing lands, there's at least 2 fixing lands, and at least one of them is a blue fixing land. That's how I go about doing it, just because I like seeing it so that people have access to cast all their spells.
Yeah, and what have been some of the benefits and side effects that you've had from that?
The benefits is that people can see through the draft. They can read signals. It's a little easier to read signals, and you can make better decisions on the fly. And fixing is very important in control, especially in control mirrors. You want to have good fixing so you can cast all your spells. And having an even amount of lands for each player to have access to is important in that aspect, especially since a lot of the threats in the cube are creature lands.
Yeah,
Shout out to
absolutely.
Coma. Shout out to Coma.
Coma is not in the cube anymore. I took Coma's
Field
out.
of the Dead is top 24 cards in that cube.
Field of the Dead is
Yes, it
top
is.
24, and it is still in the cube.
Yes. Como is pretty miserable in that cube, I'll be honest.
But there are some changes I made to it. Sam said the most broken card in the cube is the new room from Dustmorn, the Roaring Furnace.
Oh no, I don't
Steaming
agree.
Sauna. Yeah, I don't agree. He said it was too
Coma's way
good.
too good.
Yeah, no,
Como was the
Coma's.
easiest 3-0 of my life.
And Justin, I know that you also seed fixing in your packs. Tell me about that. What kind of benefits and disadvantages you've seen?
So I used to have dedicated land slots for it. And then I was like, you know what? It's probably easier to just like find the percentage of lands that I have in 580 and then make sure that that amount of lands get into the 360 card draft. And so that's what I do now instead. By doing that, it just keeps the environment of the cube realistic to what you would see online when you're drafting out of all of the cards in the 540 cube or 580 cube.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. I mean, there's a chance that in the 200 cards that are undrafted, 100 of them are lands. It's unlikely, but then the person who's trying to go five color poop, like I always do, gets screwed, and that's so sad. Or all the fetches aren't in there. And next thing I wanted to talk about with you guys is kind of the overall downsides that I could imagine with seeding in Cube in general. For example, as we mentioned with seeding top cards, this takes additional time during the draft. Have you noticed that doing seeding creates a lot more time for you when you're trying to set up the draft? I can't imagine that you're doing this all when you get there, Justin. This must
No,
be a lot of
so
time putting them to Cuberviews.
yeah, so I have the dragon shields or the Cuban majigs, and you know what? It used to take me like an hour and a half anyway, where every time before a draft night, I would sit down and I would count all the cards to make sure that I had all 540 or 580. And then I would like disperse them perfectly and shuffle half into half into half and make sure that there was equal ratios. And you know what? I just found out that it doesn't take that much longer to just be like, okay, what's my top 24? What are my doubles cards? What are my synergistic cards? And then shuffle, and make sure that one is in each pack face down. So I, as the cube curator, don't know what the packs are anyway. I really don't think it takes that much more time to produce a result that gives so much positivity to the actual draft.
Yeah, and Brian, I know that it doesn't add a lot of additional time having to shuffle up those extra cards, deal them out to
Mhm.
everybody. But I know a lot of people have the mentality that cube 3 rounds a draft can take a long time as it is. So
Mhm.
having to add that additional step, have you found that the gameplay advantages outweigh the potential people having to explain how to do it? Oh, you're going to add this to the beginning of the pack. You're going to have to shuffle them up. Tell me about that.
I don't think it takes much longer than a standard way of doing cube drafts. Like a lot of people show up with their cubes and we have to shuffle them anyway. Some people show up with their cubes and they're in like new cube order where all of the colors are separated and everything's ready to go. So we got to spend the first 15 minutes shuffling and making packs and doing things anyway. If you do all that ahead of time, and I do the same thing with cube and jigs and create the packs ahead of time. Just like while I'm watching the TV shows that I'm going to be watching anyway, or whatever I'm doing, I will make the packs ahead of time. And I think it's important that if you're the person making the packs and you present the packs to everybody and let everybody else pick the packs that they want and pick the packs that you get as well. You don't create the packs and then show up and be like, and these are my 3 packs. Like you don't do that. Nobody's a jerk like that. So you have to let other people do it. And I don't think it takes much longer than if it would be to shuffle to explain the things. I also do a thing in my cube that I have yet to meet anybody else who does in their cube, and I stand behind it, and I think I'm right. I do a cube where it's unsleeved, and then everybody has to sleeve their packs. Like again, it's mirroring more of a standard draft type of a thing when you would open packs and then sleeve them. Because I hate whenever you do an O-ring effect or a control magic effect and you seal somebody's card and then you accidentally shuffle it into your deck and then you move on to the next round and then 2 games into that match you realize, oh, I have your card because they're all in the same sleeves.
Yeah,
So
that was especially disastrous at like Vertex, Philadelphia, because I saw one draft, I think it was Kyle's actually, where had 44 at the end and somebody had 46 because they took one of your cards or something. And then at the end, when the judge was making sure for the Hedron network that it was messed up.
Oh yeah, so I had a game. The guy who I drew with at the end, he got made into top 8. I got into 15th, sadly. But we had a match that went to time, and there was 60 permanents on the board, including like 4 Onerine effects. It just went to time, and we had to go to the next round. And I accidentally took one of his permanents from his sideboard, And at the end, I was like, I have an extra card here. And he was like, okay. And I just gave it to him, which the Vertex system was great. Like taking a picture of it at the beginning and end to double check all your cards was perfect, which helped us out time wise, but it was so confusing in that cube.
To make things clear, like Brian shows up to the draft and he's got like 12 different types of sleeves that you can choose from so
Yeah.
that every single deck is in a different type and color.
Mm-hmm. It's a 540, so it's a 12-player cube. So I have 12 different colored sleeves for everybody to have if we do that many. And again, it takes longer, yes, but again, we're not sitting there shuffling the packs beforehand and making packs and everything. That stuff is all done. We just show up and start drafting like you would a standard thing where you just get the packs and start doing it. And then you have to sleeve your cards, but that only takes like 5 minutes per person. So I don't think it's adding much more when you're already doing it for 3 or 4 hours anyway.
Just to be clear, I think that people are probably thinking, "Oh my gosh, your cards are unsleeved. Your vintage cube, it's a proxied cube. Everyone
Yes.
relax. It's okay."
They are unsleeved in the sense that they are double sleeved. So they're sleeved in the inner sleeves when you're drafting them, and the whole cube is fake. My cube is a 100% proxied cube. I wanted to build a vintage cube, and I didn't want to spend $100,000 to do so. So I faked the whole thing. So apologies, wizards.
And another question that I was wondering if you ever received this kind of complaint from drafters before is, have you ever had drafters say, "Hey, why are we seeding packs? This isn't a randomized draft. I want to make sure that the draft is randomized. How do I know that you don't know what's in each pack or that I'm not going to get some screwed up packs that I don't get anything good?" Have you ever experienced complaints like that? How do you talk to drafters about that?
Every damn day. I've gotten so many complaints with that. And to be fair, like I bring my cube to like some major events to do that too. And I haven't like perfected the way I see things. I think that I see things really nicely now. I've done some questionable seedings back in the day when I brought this to like Boston Cube Party or CubeCon and such. And you know what? You just try to empathetically understand where they're coming from and process it. And you take that home with you and you really think about it and you take the constructed feedback and you see if that's actually coexistent with the environment that you want to present. And I took that feedback and I realized, hey, you're right about this. So I changed some things.
Yeah, I think the main goal with it is to make sure that come up as less malicious as possible. Like your goal is just to make a good draft experience. Like offer to trade packs. You can like even videotape yourself shuffling everything face down if you even wanted to go that far. Just make sure that the players know that you don't have any hidden information going forward. I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, because especially if it's a draft where it's in a tournament style, it could definitely be questions about, do I want to be playing for $1,000 when you're in the pod with me at Vertex or CubeCon, and these packs could be seeded. So I could definitely understand people's complaints or people's concerns, but as long as you really explain your process behind it, make sure that the drafters understand, hey, I do this fairly. I don't know where any of these cards are. We can trade packs, then that should be fine, I would hope. And if players do have concerns about it, then you, like Justin said, take the feedback and adjust how you do it.
I don't think I've seen a lot of complaints at our local group when we're just playing at like a Saturday night with the seed and the packs. I think everyone's pretty chill with it as long as things go pretty fast.
Yeah,
I
I've
think a lot of
personally
people,
never seen issues.
I've gotten a lot of positive feedbacks about it. A lot of people like it better, like with especially spreading out the rarity and the power and everything like that. So, but I'm always trying to improve the way that I do seedings anyway, or at least try to do things differently. Like every time I'm reseeding packs, I'm always switching something up, even just slightly, to try to do it. I want to try to do seedings for packs that are like out there, that are more bizarre and things like that, where like each 15 card in a pack comes from its own seeded like pile of 36 cards type of a thing. I think that could be fun, but I haven't gotten that far yet.
Yeah, and also like was mentioned earlier, with seeding lands or seeding the colors of cards in the packs, people could say that's on easy mode or say that it doesn't feel authentic. What would you say to somebody who maybe feel that way?
It not being completely random, I don't know if it makes it less authentic. Like, I don't think the packs that you would open from Foundations or whatever new set is out are completely random. They do it by like runs of cards, right? Like they'll have common runs where they make sure that it's kind of separated by colors so you're not getting all things. So I think it is maybe slightly more authentic in a sense than just a random thing. Like I said, I haven't gotten too much feedback, like negative feedback about things. Most of it has been positive.
Yeah, and what has been some of the most positive feedback that you've all received?
People like that they get access to the lands more specifically because people like seeing, fixing, especially being able to cast the cards is important, and being able to read different ideas in the draft and see where things are flowing is a lot easier, but it's not necessarily leading to a more boring game state. People still have enjoyed the draft process.
Yeah, people enjoy knowing that they're gonna get like a piece of power in their draft. I've noticed more than like going in just hoping you're gonna get a piece of power and being disappointed when you don't get any and somebody else gets three. Knowing one's coming, people tend to be more favorable for, I've noticed. But I also am now doing it like different from the last time we did it, where I separate the top 36 cards outside of the packs and then deal them separately to each person as the 15th card to the pack. Now I'm putting them in the packs and I'm separating each three packs so that you'll get a three pack of cards and one of them will have a piece of power in it. But then I'll give you guys the option to trade packs if you want to at that point. And will you want to trade a pack to somebody else, knowing that you might be trading away your piece of power to try to get a second piece of power? That'll be up to you at that point.
Yeah, I think of it as a lot like reading a book or going through a story. Like it's worse if you're reading a book and something random happens that you can't predict, and you're like, "Oh, that sucks," and this book is boring, and like just takes you different directions that you're not used to, and you're like, I hate this." Rather than the book where you can like kind of predict what's happening, and you could follow along with the story, and you can like do your best to make predictions and enjoy it better. I think that's what Seed and Pack leads to in the cube environment, a more predictable but a lot more well-made story in your draft.
I think in general, people have really liked the variety of decks that come out of seeding because they're like, oh wow, what is this like ancient Cellar Spawn Allurin deck that you're pulling off that like combos out? And I mean, the last two drafts that we had at the game store at my cube, Storm has won twice. And notoriously, like Storm is probably one of the worst decks that you could put together because it's so freaking hard to put together. It often leads to nothing. And most recently, Kyle just 3-0'd with that so beautifully. And it's like, yes, certain pieces of that deck were seeded. Not all the pieces were, but when you're able to do that, to at least like seed the backbone of a really strong parasitic, if you want to say, deck, it's amazing what you can pull off.
Thank you.
What was the other Storm deck?
It was yours, wasn't it?
Yeah, it
was
was
it
the
a Storm
Blue
deck?
Lyra Storm.
It wasn't Storm. It was a Dark Depths deck. That it didn't have Brain Freeze, Tendrils, or anything. It was Luris, Breach LED into Dark Depths. It was so stupid.
Wait, what was that like?
It's still 3-0'd.
It
It was
did.
like that
High
high
tide
tide coveted
into-
jewel.
Oh yeah, I
thing.
tried a high tide deck. Yeah, that went 1 and 2. That was a terrible mistake.
And it was beautiful.
Didn't you also win by fully putting all the mana into Dark Depths as well?
No, I never did that. I don't
Oh,
think.
okay.
I won the last match against Justin, match 3 at the 2-0 match because I played Luris to play Breach to play Vamp Tutor to get a counterspell so I could Dark Depths without him countering the activated ability. And then I won. It was such a dumb series of moves that won me
It
a
was
game.
smart though. You know what you need to play around. You're like, all right, I'll get counterspell. Perfect.
Yeah, so it's been great having you guys on, Kyle, Brian, Justin. Anything else you want to say before we wrap up, any of you?
I think you should seed your packs. Honestly, like I really don't think it adds that much more like pre-time when you're building your cube packs. But there is the beauty and simplicity of just showing up to the store and being like, hey guys, we're ready. Like it doesn't matter. We don't need to seed anything. You can literally just grab this and make packs and go. So, there's benefits to both.
I think everybody should force their players to sleeve their own decks in different colored sleeves. I will stand by that all day, every day.
As long as there's
And-
pink available.
Sure, any colors you want. And also, thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
Remember to seed your packs so that people have a better draft experience. Make sure that the best cube is when you have the least amount of time between showing up and starting. So any front loading that you can do of that time, even if it's a little bit more time on yourself, leads to a better experience for everyone involved.
100%.
I definitely agree. I need to do that more often. And yeah, it's been great having you guys on. And as per usual, if you could please like, subscribe, give a 5-star rating, I would highly appreciate it. And we'll see you guys all next week. Have a great day.
Good night.